Hello and welcome to KIKI'S chat show. Today is 24th of February. The second month is about to end, which in some ways for us who live in the Western world, we become excited when it's February because it's like it's getting warm. The weather is changing. We're entering into proper spring. And life is always beautiful. Flowers sprout out and everything looks beautiful. There's more freedom. You can go out and eat. You can eat ice cream. You can have lunch with your friends outdoors, and you can do all sorts of lovely things. I don't know what is happening now because we're still in our pandemic. Everyone is worried. We're being given dates we do not trust, etc., etc. Now, while all of this is happening, one of the things that a human being thinks they have is choice. And one of the things about choice is different ideas. And what is different about ideas is we all make choices to suit ourselves. Now, today we're going to be talking about choice, why we should be helped to make those choices, and if we will ever regret the choices we make. I'm losing my earring. I don't know how that's possible, but it's fallen off. Today I have two guests, and I'm going to introduce them in a minute, but before I introduce them, I need you to understand that everything we say here today is not that we're forcing you, or we're just helping you to make your own informed choice. Several people have sent me questions and I will ask them. And any question we ask is a question in somebody's mind. And these two ladies are going to try and answer them. My two guests today are Sedina Agama, Associate Director, Medicines Optimism, Chief Pharmacist in Southwest London. And my other guest is Dorcas Owusu-Yanoma. She is a general practitioner, which we call in the UK a GP. And she has been a GP in this country for over 16 years. A GP is somebody who you go to, you tell her what your problem is. She will look at you, maybe look in your ears, whatever it is. She's a doctor. She will give you medicine. She will prescribe. And the person who gives you the medicine is Sedina. So I have got the two people who deal with medicine, with illness, with problems here to try and answer our problems. We'll be back in a second. Hello, ladies, and welcome to my show. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now I do not know whether I should go on a tangent and tell people all sorts of things, or if I should go straight into the questions. But I think with the sensitivity of these things, and I've got over 40 questions, I'd better start asking them straight away.
That's fine.
Now, my first question is, I want to ask that question just to get it out of the way. Does the vaccine affect our genes or DNA?
Okay.
Who wants to answer? Okay, doctor.
Okay then. So the way that the vaccine works is that it enters into our immune cells, but it only acts from the cytoplasm of the cells. So it actually doesn't enter into the nucleus where the DNA is. So it does not affect our genes in any way because it doesn't enter into our nucleus or the nuclei of the cells.
And okay, so you've answered the gene one and the DNA, because I hear there is an mRNA. And is that also genes, or is that separate and it can enter that one and not the genes? I don't know. As a layperson, treat me as somebody who is off the street, which I am, and I'm asking you serious questions. So people are worried that it's going to affect them in a certain way. Whether, I mean, you know, so
it doesn't enter your nucleus, which is where your DNA is.
Okay.
The messenger RNA is a code to make the protein of the spikes of the virus. So we've all seen the virus. It's got spikes coming out of it. Yeah. So it looks like a little ball with bits coming out. So the bits that are coming out, the spiky bits, are the protein. So the messenger RNA is the code to make that protein. When that messenger RNA enters the cell recognizes that and makes the protein for the antibodies for those spikes. That is all that happens with that messenger RNA. And after that, it disintegrates and it's no longer available to do anything else. So no, it doesn't affect your DNA at all. It doesn't go anywhere near your DNA. Your DNA is within the nucleus of the cell, which is what Dorcas has explained. It is about synthesizing the protein that is the antibody that the body needs to fight the virus. So that's what the messenger RNA is about.
Okay, thank you. Now, the other question is, can the vaccine target specific ethnic groups?
Absolutely not.
Dr. Dorcas?
Well, I understand that is part of the controversy around which some ethnic groups are scared of getting the vaccine, but there isn't any medical evidence. There's no scientific evidence that the vaccine targets particular ethnic groups. When we are administering the vaccine, you have a multi-dose vaccine that is being used for all sorts of people. So whoever comes into the clinic, you have a variety of people from different ethnic backgrounds. They're all being injected from the same vial. And we are all expecting to get an immune response. Sedina will tell you that during the clinical trials for the COVID vaccine, they used multiple ethnicities, including Black people, who formed about 10% of those who took part in the research. So it is safe for Black people as it is safe for Asians.
Okay. Now, I mean, that is interesting because constantly on the news, we keep hearing that Black people, or they keep saying Black and ethnic groups are more susceptible to the COVID illness itself. And it you know, this started a few weeks after we realized there was COVID somewhere, that people were actually catching COVID, people were in the hospital. And one would wonder why they kept saying that so early. Why? The other thing is, I know, and you all know, that a lot of the time, Black people are the ones who are frontline workers. And because they're in the front line, of course, they will catch it, because at the time there was the argument about PPE not being available, or in fact, people didn't really know what the problem was. So Black people, of course, will catch it as well. So why are they constantly saying it has been even before the vaccine appeared, Black people, but we are a small percentage in this country, and in fact, in every country in the Western world, the percentage of Black people to the Caucasians is minuscule. So this small percentage is constantly being targeted, you begin to wonder, are have you actually thought about it? Whilst you are interested and determined to get us vaccinated, which is your job, have you not also wondered about this? Sedina?
You make some valid points. So the Black and Asian and minority ethnic population was disproportionately affected. So you're absolutely right in saying that we form a small percentage of the population, but a lot of the illness, the severe illness and the deaths were seen very early on in the Black and minority ethnic. And you've mentioned some of the reasons. So it is about the fact that they would be frontline workers. And as you said yourself, in the beginning, we had the whole, certainly in the UK, the whole PPE debacle, how to put it that way. So people were being exposed to the virus, but also those populations have a higher percentage or incidence of underlying conditions as well. So we know that when the virus affects people, if you have an underlying condition, it increases your risk. That is the reason why at the moment we're immunizing those with underlying conditions. And it's been quite positive to see so many of our community actually in the last few days in the clinic. We've had a lot of our communities coming in for their immunization because they will be between 16 and 64 with an underlying condition. That's the cohort that we're immunizing at the moment. So we know that those people have a higher risk than perhaps a population that doesn't have it's the same incidence of underlying conditions. So I think the data showed us that was the case, but I think it would be fair to say that there are lots of health inequalities in our populations as well. So I work in the borough of Merton. Merton ranges from the upper echelons of Wimbledon across through Morden and to Mitcham. Very different demographics. So a patient that lives on the east side of our borough in Merton has a much lower life expectancy than the same patient, say a female or a male, on the west side. So we know that there are health inequalities, and the health inequalities is a very complex discussion that I think it wouldn't be great to have that conversation. Maybe that's a conversation for another day, but there are many reasons why.
No. I disagree. That is a conversation for now, because if there are health inequalities, for example, Black people go to poorer hospitals, or Black people, because of racism, are not being looked after properly, and therefore they do not trust the medical system, etc., etc. That is what should be discussed at this moment, not the fact that they don't want vaccines.
Okay, so the health inequalities, the reasons are multifold, which is why I was saying, you will need to spend time looking at this. So health inequalities occur for various reasons. It could be to do with education, it can be to do with beliefs, it can be to do with religion, it can be to do with housing, it can be to do with just the ability to access services. So it's a multitude of things that creates the health inequalities. But having said that, I was just saying to Dorcas before we came on air that the government is determined to look at these health inequalities and to do something about them. And in everything that we do, we've got to address the health inequalities. So in our clinic, we make sure that the access to the clinic is made as easy as possible for every patient, whether they're coming into our clinic in Wimbledon or they're coming into our clinic in Mitcham, that they're able to access it in exactly the same way. So trying to deal with the health inequalities is multifold. And you need to engage and collaborate with partners. So we're working with our local authority. This week, I've been in a homeless shelter. We're going into mosques. We want to go into churches. So we're trying really hard so that when it comes to the vaccine, that the access is the same for everybody. There should be no reason why somebody's ability to access the vaccine depends on their social economic status or where they live or their education level or their religion or their beliefs or what have you. We're trying really hard to reduce that inequality. But we're also recognizing, as we're working with community leaders, that there are many things that we need to address. And I think if there's one thing that I would say in my borough, that we have engaged with the community leaders in a way that will help us address these health inequalities going forward. And prior to this, we hadn't actually worked in the same way. And I think it can only get better. I don't know what it's like for you, Dorcas in Luton, but certainly I can say in my borough, definitely, we're having the conversation and we're looking at, how we can come together, because as I said, it's multifactorial, how we can come together with the leaders in these different areas to reduce the health inequalities, because it's not great, really, is it, to have these health inequalities?
I think, and Dorcas, this question is directed to you see, I think that when the illness suddenly hit and all of that, in the first few weeks, it was in the news all over the place that the Black people were catching it, Black people and ethnic minorities. And this carried on, and this has carried on, and nothing, and they as you said, there is a discussion, but what discussion? All they keep saying is the same thing they were saying from the first week. We don't know anything. And now that the vaccine has appeared, these Black people are still not coming forward. But you see, Black people seem not to be trusting, whatever the situation is. Dorcas, can you help me here? What do you think about the level of trust that Black people have and why we're going through this right now?
All right. I think that the level of trust issue is a historical thing. And
yes,
some of it is quite founded. For instance, there has been research in the past that has used Black people, sometimes without their knowledge, to develop all sorts of medicines and things like that. Thinking about what happened in America with the George Floyd incident, that is just a tip of the iceberg of what has been going on. So it's understandable that Black people wonder whether somebody is targeting them or they've got something against them. But let's not forget that in as much as it seems that Black people and ethnic minorities are being disproportionately affected by COVID, it's affecting white people as well. White people are dying as well. So we need to look at it from the point of view that we have a common enemy that we are all trying to overcome. And COVID has affected communities en masse, families, economies, livelihoods, mental health is a big thing. So we are trying to combat it. And one of the reasons why I agreed to come on this program when Sedina asked me is because I believe very much that it's the responsibility of those of us who have perhaps maybe a different position or a privileged, maybe understanding or position. It's our responsibility to educate and encourage people to realize that actually nobody is out to harm anybody. And hence I made the point that the same vial is being used to vaccinate different people from different cultures. You see, so you're not getting a different vaccine from the Caucasian person. We are all getting the same thing. So I don't know whether that helps with the trust thing. We are trying to help people to realize that actually we can trust this because we have trusted these same institutions over the years to provide us with medicines, to provide us with other vaccines, and we have taken them without question. So what is the difference now? Why now is it different?
It is not a now thing. It is not why now. I think it is more of a lot of people. Are you aware that a lot of people were giving the polio vaccine and became crippled? The vaccine, after the vaccine, they became crippled. Now, this is something that has happened in pockets of Africa. A lot of people have had all sorts of situations where they may, as with anything, may have had either an adverse reaction or because of allergies or because of other illnesses or something, that injections have affected them in different ways. So this vaccine, where it is happening en masse, is something which one could be thinking, oh dear, you know, maybe, as you said previously, they may have they may have done a few tests on Caucasians per se, and they haven't done the, because Black people, one thing about Black people that you both should know or do know is that we do not offer ourselves for tests or for, what do you call,
clinical
we do not
trials.
offer ourselves for, you know, when people volunteer. Yeah, we don't do that because we've been caught, and it's been done to us, with sometimes without our knowledge, sometimes, you know, under duress, etc., etc. So the point I'm trying to make is, what if this vaccine is good for Caucasians and may be dangerous for Black people? Dorcas, again.
What if this vaccine may be good for Caucasians, but dangerous for Black people? All right. So as I said before, the trials that were done. Okay, so these trials were done with tens and thousands of people. So usually when clinical trials are being done, you would have, you know, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. Some of the medications that come on the market, for instance, some new cancer medications may have only just gone through phase 2 trials, and there isn't enough evidence for them. And yet people are clamoring to have those medications because they may offer a glimmer of hope for them. These vaccines have undergone extensive trials. So about 67,000 people combined for the AstraZeneca and the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines. So we know that this is quite a large amount of people, and there have been very few side effects. And as I said before, there has been a proportion of Black people as well as Asian people involved in these trials. So because of the fact that it's not been purely, targeted at Caucasian people, and the trials have been run over a period of time, we can trust the evidence, the scientific evidence, I believe. So I don't know whether Sedina wants to add anything to that.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the evidence, and on top of the 67,000 people, in the UK alone, 18 million people, close, probably more by now, have had the vaccine as well. Plus the millions of people across the world. I mean, Israel is doing a lot of work on that. So I think, back to the issue of trust, I personally, I've been a pharmacist for close to 30 years, and I can tell you there has never been a product that has been that's had more scrutiny than this vaccine has. And I think we needed that because we found ourselves in a very difficult situation that we needed to get out of. And so the vaccine is being watched. So the surveillance is very, very high. And we can see already that, coming out from the reports that are done. So when people take the vaccine, if they have an adverse effect, they report on a yellow card to the MHRA, which is our safety committee in the UK. And those results are online for everybody to see. And they're very, very, very tiny numbers of people with even the rarest of side effects, and that may be having the common symptoms for a long period. So I think we can trust it. It's the best we've got, because the question is, what is the alternative?
Yeah.
We all know what the alternative is. I think in our community, we can see what the alternative is. We're seeing people dying. We're seeing people seriously ill on ITU. We're seeing families broken apart. We're seeing people with long COVID. And so, on balance, which, as you said right at the beginning, Candy, we all will make decisions. And when you're making a decision, you will balance your risks versus your benefits. And so when we weigh those up, for most people, the benefits far outweigh the risks of the vaccine, because we know what can happen when you get COVID. We know how infectious it is. And so it's important to protect ourselves, our families, our communities, because we all want to come out of this lockdown. We can't live like this. It's not normal for us to live like this. Certainly for those of us here in the UK, being locked up for some patients. So when I see patients in the clinic, for some people, the first time they've been out in over a year is to have their vaccine. That's not good for anybody for multiples of reasons, for their health, for their well-being, for their mental health. So, the vaccine offers us that hope of coming out of that. It offers us the hope of suppressing this virus so that it can't cause the serious disease. And, as we each make the decision, that's what we need to think about. We can take the vaccine, and there's lots of information about it, or we can risk having COVID, and there's lots of information about that as well. And the question is, as we each make the decision, what does our scale look like? Is it tipped in sort of in favor of the risks of the vaccine, or is it tipped in favor of the risks of COVID? And is it tipped in favor of the benefits of the vaccine or not? And that's the question, and that's the decision that we each need to make. My role and Dorcas's role is to give people the information to make that decision. We can't make the decision for them, but we can answer the questions, we can dispel the myths, we can allay the fears, we can address the concerns, and we can direct people who to go to if they've got further questions that we're unable to answer. And that's what we see our role as being tonight.
There are lots of people on the comment section who are quite happy to receive the vaccine from what you're saying, but there's some questions as well saying, how do we have a vaccine for COVID newly arrived when after decades we don't have vaccine for malaria, which has killed and continues to kill loads of people?
That's an interesting question. As far as I know, they had been trying some malaria vaccines. So
yeah. So Candy, to answer that question, what I will say is that this is a pandemic that has affected basically the whole world. And so with the impact that it's had on societies across the board, a lot of effort has been put in collaboratively to produce a vaccine to stop the effects of this virus.
I think, Doctor,
you can't hear me.
We hear you a little, not fully, because I think there's something wrong with your internet is not strong.
Right. Is that any better or not?
Yeah, you're better. Yeah. You're better now.
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. So the point I was trying to make is that this is something that has affected the whole world, basically. And so there's been a lot of effort from different quarters and from many quarters to try and address the problem. So lots of research, lots of industry, government backings or governments backing across board to try and find a solution. So it's been a concerted effort to find a solution. So you could say that perhaps malaria has affected more so certain portions of the world. And maybe the will hasn't been there from the powers that be to put in what they can to ensure that a vaccine is produced for malaria. That's what I would say. But having said that, there have been different programs to try and reduce the impact of malaria, isn't it? With
the question at this juncture.
Carry on. I'm done, so carry on.
At this juncture, there is a lot of division, as I can see from the comment section, that some people are fine with the vaccine and they have no problem with that. But it's not them that this show is directed at. This show is directed at the people who have not had the vaccine, people who are skeptical about having the vaccine, and people who we need to open their minds a little bit to make them see possibly if there is an argument for having against not having. Now, people want to know whether the two of you have had your vaccines already.
Absolutely.
Yes. I had my first on the 21st of December.
I work in the clinic. I had mine on the first day, so on the 16th of December. I've had both of my vaccines. I'm working in the clinic, so obviously I'm at high risk. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. Took some paracetamol after both. Been absolutely fine.
Yep. As well, I got a text today for my second vaccine.
So
I'm quite happy about that.
The both of you that's wonderful. I think it's my internet that's cutting out because I can't hear properly. The other question is, once you've had your vaccine, you're out. But the problem is, even with the vaccine, you can still catch COVID. Is it not?
Yeah.
Dr. Docas.
Yes. So the purpose of the vaccine really, primarily, is to reduce the chances that we will catch COVID. However, if we should catch COVID, then having had the vaccine is going to reduce your chances by far of getting seriously unwell with COVID. Or dying, yes. Well, you have to be seriously unwell to die, isn't it? So we have to look at it from the point of view that if these vaccines are being quoted as anywhere from, say, 75 to 80% up to 95% effective, that is actually a very good vaccine, because the flu vaccine we have every year, I understand, has about 50% effectiveness. Sedina, quote me if I'm wrong. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
yes,
no, you're right.
we have it, and we have it in good faith. So actually, these vaccines are very effective as well as being very safe. And that's why we feel that actually they are great and a good solution to the problem that we are facing as a society.
Okay, now one of the questions is, if you have the vaccine, therefore you're catching it, you can catch it, but you will not get seriously ill or die. Does that also relate to people with underlying illnesses like kidney problems, etc., heart problems, all of these people, because they are the people who are the demographic that should have it first. Now, the first vaccine, you have it, and then you're supposed to have the second one. So at which point can you tell that this is working anyway? Sajina?
At which point can you tell? So once you have the vaccine, within 3 weeks, you develop a good level of immunity. Okay.
How do you know that the majority of people here in this country, apart from you,
yeah,
what I was saying was,
yes,
the majority of people have only had the first vaccine. They haven't had the second. No. So how can we be sure that this is gonna, because it's just a few people like you and all the, some of the frontline workers who've had the double vaccine. How do we know that this is working?
How do we know that it's working? Well,
yeah,
so there are a number of things. So we know from the trials, because we're mimicking what happened in the trials. So we know that in the trials, when you've had your first vaccine, you have a good level of immunity, and then you have a booster to top it up. So that's what we're doing. How do we know that it's safe for us? Well, we're all working. So both Dorcas and I are working as frontline workers, seeing people who are coming in. We don't know their COVID status when they come in. And I can assure you that in our clinic, we haven't had anybody develop COVID at all. We have seen thousands of patients in the clinic. And the important thing is that even when you've had the vaccine, you still need to take the precautions. So we're still taking the precautions anyway. And as the data develops, because there's more and more information coming out. So this week, the information that came out about both vaccines is that from the Israel data, transmissibility of the virus is remarkably reduced with the vaccine. Now, that's really good news, because it means that there will come a point in time, according to Boris's unlocking plan, that the restrictions will be removed, and that is June, because we are hoping that we would have immunized most people by then. So day by day, as we find out more about the vaccine, the confidence in having the vaccine and what it will do for us is getting stronger and stronger. The information is becoming clearer and clearer. And that's, we are believing in that, because we can see the reductions in the deaths and the serious illness equally in the population. So if any of you were watching the BBC News yesterday, there were some graphs showing that already we're seeing huge reductions in the number of people in the high-risk category. So remember, we started immunizing in the very high-risk population, which was the healthcare workers and the over 80s, okay? And already we are seeing a reduction and a decline in serious illness and in hospitalization and in deaths. So we know that the immunization is working, because these are the same patients. These are the patients in the care homes. We all remember what happened in the care homes here in the UK. They were the most vulnerable of our society, and a lot of the deaths were in those populations, but we can see a decline. So that gives us, real hope and real data to show that the immunization is working. That's what's given, our Prime Minister the confidence to come up with a roadmap with dates in it, because he can see what's happening. Candy has frozen, I think.
Dorcas.
Yes.
Dr. Dorcas. Pregnant women can have the vaccine.
Yes. So right at the beginning, when the vaccine rollouts began, we were told that there wasn't enough information or data at that time to say that it was safe for pregnant women to have it. But in time, we've been told that actually there is no problem, and there are women who have had the vaccine, have gone on to have babies, or have fallen pregnant, and there haven't been any concerns in terms of their pregnancy or in terms of the babies that have been born. So if a woman has a condition that puts her at risk of being seriously unwell with COVID, then she can be offered the vaccine if she actually requires it.
What about, I'm still with you, Dorcas. What about if you have sickle cell? Can you still have the vaccine?
Okay, so that's a big one, isn't it? Because sickle cell affects more so people from our community. So sickle cell disease is one of the conditions in which are classified as people with extremely vulnerable conditions that makes them much more at risk of getting significant illness from COVID. So there was a study that was done across all the sickle cell clinics in this country. And what they found especially was that sickle cell patients over the age of 50 were more at risk of getting seriously unwell with COVID and of dying from COVID. So the recommendation for them is that they need the vaccine. And so they are actually vaccinating their patients, starting from the hospitals, for those of them who are under hospital consultants, and encouraging the rest to get it from the community.
Okay. I have a question. Another question is, if this medicine came out in December maybe because the percentage of Black people in this country are not that many, and maybe if the frontline workers have the vaccine, the rest of the Black people are waiting to see the effects before they have it. Because from December to February, it's just a month or two. Said enough.
So what's the question?
The vaccine came out in December.
Uh-huh.
Where in February it's 2 months.
Okay.
Maybe people holding back, because this show is just talking about our people, Black people, and why they are hesitant. There are, in fact, for the two of you, and for the viewers out at large, there are two specifications of people. There are the ones who are hesitant and the ones who are anti-vaxxers. They are two different things. Absolutely. To be an anti-vaxxer is to be somebody who doesn't want vaccinations at all. Now, there are the hesitant people who want to be convinced. They want to hear positive things. They want to be sure that this is working or this will work. Now, the question to you, Sedina, is what if they want to wait a little bit and see how it affects other people before they have it?
Well, I think the answer to that is every day they wait is another day that they are at risk of having COVID. So as I said at the beginning, everybody needs to make an informed decision. The vaccination program to get us out of this pandemic is predicated on us finding a way to create immunity against the virus, and that's what the immunization program is designed to do. So what it means then is that we're going to leave part of the most vulnerable part of our population behind. Okay, and that's quite difficult to sort of accept, because the vaccination program is based on...
Sadina, I don't understand when you say leave behind.
Yeah, so when I say leave behind, so imagine...
No. If you say leave behind, are you saying that they're going to be vaccinating?
Can I interrupt?
Are you saying that they will vaccinate for a bit and stop?
No.
So if you kind of took a few months to make the decision to be vaccinated...
No, not at all. So you can have the vaccination at any time.
So when what is behind? What is leave behind?
When I say leave behind, yes. What I was going on to say, so we're talking about, so if we start with the UK, we now have a roadmap of when we are going to be opening up. So June 21st is the date that everyone is looking forward to. So when I say leave behind, what I meant was come June 21st, there's going to be a large portion of the population that would have been immunized. Okay. But then there will be for those that have been hesitant or are still thinking about it, they wouldn't have been immunized. So when I say leave behind, that's what I meant. I didn't mean that they won't get it. They're entitled to it at any point that they make their mind up to have the vaccination. That is, I need to make that absolutely clear. Then will not be left behind, i.e. they can't have it. But I think we're going to enter the realms of part of the population have had the immunization. They're going to start to be, there are discussions already about how that information will be used, what it will mean in the workplace, what it will mean in different spheres. So when I say leave behind, in quotes, leave behind as in that part of the population would then not be able to be part of those decisions that will be made around the vaccination program. So that's the thing, and it's people have the right to make the decision. I think we both made that very clear. But also, if people need to travel, what does it mean? If people need to go into the office, what does it mean? How are we going to move forward from the pandemic situation coming out of our lockdowns? What will that mean for those that haven't been immunized? That's the question that none of us know the answer to right now either. So that's what I meant. I definitely didn't mean that they can't have it. They can have it, and we say that to patients all the time. You might not have made a decision. You might not be clear. You might not be comfortable. You might have concerns, but you can have it at the point that you decide to have it. Absolutely. Here in the UK, you can. I don't know how it will work in other places, but here in the UK, you can definitely have it when you decide to have it.
Excuse me, Kiki, I think that the chat is building up.
Yeah,
Can you
Dorcas, you were saying.
The chat. Is somebody looking at the chat? The chat. People are putting comments in the chat. Are you looking at that? You are looking at that? Did you hear me?
Yes.
The chat, is that being policed?
Yes, I can hear you, and I am looking at the chat.
Okay, thank you.
How do you mean policed?
Yeah, it's as in, are you seeing what people are putting on questions wise?
Yes, and I am saying to you, I am reading some of the questions. The questions I'm asking are not my questions.
Okay.
They are questions from the comment section, because I have said to people they should make their comments and ask you. So most of the questions are coming. The only one I was asking was about the pregnant women.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I mean, somebody is saying, do you ladies believe that after taking the vaccine, as they have not got a long-term evidence, 5 years down the line, they'll say they made a mistake with the medicine? Or Dorcas?
Right. Okay. So I think one of the things that we said at the beginning is that these vaccines have gone through very rigorous examination and sort of vetting and testing to make sure that they are safe and effective. I'll just give an example of a medication like ranitidine, which is a very common medication that we have used for at least over 30 years, right? Only, I think it was last year or the year before, there was some information that some of the products of ranitidine had been linked to some side effects. Sedina, am I right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And it's been withdrawn from the market. Xanta, that's ranitidine, isn't it? Xanta, yes. It's been used for so many years, and so many people have benefited from it. So when you have a new medication or a new vaccination, you will have certain things that we can say right now. For instance, we know that when you get a vaccination, you might get some side effects that are quite mild and short-lived. But 10, 15, 20 years down the line, if somebody was saved from COVID now, to live that 20 years, I mean, God forbid, but if there should even be a long-term something that develops down the line, aren't you going to be glad that you were given the chance to live 20 years rather than having died earlier on? So nobody will be able to tell you 100% that there is never going to be anything. But as
I mean, that is an interesting way.
Yeah. We are balancing risks against benefits, isn't it? So you have to look at where the balance.
That's an interesting one.
So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. What about you, Sedina? Because I think that a lot of people are in the comment section are very concerned that a few years down the line there may be, and also it's because it's for profit, and that's why. I mean, I have my own question I need to ask before the time is up, but you know, what do you think? What do you do you still believe that this is the best option and people should really think deeply about being hesitant?
Yeah, absolutely. So I absolutely believe it's the best option. And I also respect people's hesitancy. I think people need to think about what they're hesitant about, and they need to speak to a healthcare professional to help them work through the reasons for the hesitancy and to get some answers to their concerns. I think that the issue on the long-term effect, well, I don't think this vaccine is any different to any new medicine that comes out. Every new medicine that comes out brings with it the hope of alleviating a disease or eliminating the disease or lessening the symptoms or preventing a disease, or it comes out with a hope. And every patient that takes that medication with the hope. So the hope for this vaccine is really no different to any of those. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I have worked as a clinical trials pharmacist. I have worked as an intensive care pharmacist. I am a chief pharmacist for an organization. So the population in my borough are my responsibility. And for that reason, I think it's the best hope for that population. So when I talk to the patients in my borough, it is the best hope that we have for them right now. Okay? They need to make the decision with that information in mind and look at their own personal circumstances. And as I said in the beginning, weigh them out. It's always benefit versus risk. And my job is to help allay the concerns, address any fears, answer any questions, bust any myths, and encourage people really with what I know and what I can share and what experience I have. So I hope that answers your question, Candy.
It has, in a way. My other thing is, right now, Ghana is the first African country, apart from South Africa, which is not really African, but, along the west coast of Africa,
yeah,
we are the first African country to actually receive the vaccine, and it's today. Now,
that's brilliant.
I am very concerned about how people are going to. There are about it, and then there are those who are skeptical about it. We don't have much time because very soon our hour will be up. Would you be happy to come back next week so that we can talk about what's happening in Accra, how, well, the whole of Ghana really, and the distribution?
Oops. The internet is. So I think what Candy was trying to say is, will we be willing to come back and talk about it? I mean, absolutely. I think we will need somebody in Ghana who knows what the strategy is, what the plans are, how they plan to roll it out. And then, I mean, we're happy to share our experience. Obviously, the structure in Ghana will be very, very different to the structure here in the UK. Even here in the UK, one thing I meant to say to people, because I think it's important people realize, is that you can have your vaccine in various places. So you can have your vaccine in a hospital if you're healthcare staff. You can have your vaccine in a local vaccination center that's run by your GPs. But at the same time, you could be invited to go to one of the large vaccination centers. And I know there's been a little bit of confusion with people where their GP has contacted them, but we've also had a letter inviting them to book their vaccine at one of the vaccination centers. And it's just to let people know that it's either or. If you're having your first vaccination, you either have it with your GP in the community, or you go to a large vaccination center or a community pharmacy, because they're in the same group. I mean, at the moment, the large vaccination centers and the community pharmacies are working on the cohort, which is 64 to 69. So those patients are at particular risk of getting 2 invitations if their GP has already invited them, and they've also been invited by the National Booking Service. And it's a query that I get asked quite often. So it's just people know the difference, that there are 2 different systems, and you only need to book into one of them. So if your GP invites you and you're happy to go there, to the clinic that they've set up, it's not in every GP practice. The GP practices have grouped together and have venues, or you're invited to a large vaccination center. In my part of the world, that would be a place like Epsom Racecourse or Excel Center, but they're run slightly differently, but they each offer the vaccine, and you can have it in either place, or you can go to a community pharmacy. There are a few community pharmacies as well, with more coming on board, definitely in London, where you can have your vaccine as well. So all of these are choices that people have as to where they choose to have their vaccine. I don't know if there's anything else in the chat that we need to address.
But maybe if not, or if there is, Kiki, Candy might be able to pick it up and
what we need to
have it
address
addressed
next week
at
is the
that time.
types of vaccine. The types of vaccine and the choices of vaccine that, you know, do people have choice? Because I think that you go and whatever is there, they give you.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So we are allocated the vaccine. Quite often we only know the week before which vaccine we're going to get. It takes quite a long time to book patients into the clinic. So there is no clinical indication as to why a patient would have the Pfizer vaccine other than they have an allergy to something specific in the AstraZeneca vaccine. So most patients in primary care, so in the GP clinics, will have the Pfizer vaccine, increasingly the AstraZeneca vaccine. If you have allergies, as in serious allergies that have required hospitalization, or you carry an EpiPen, then you would be offered the AstraZeneca vaccine, only because AstraZeneca vaccine doesn't include a particular component of the vaccine that Pfizer does. And that particular component is known to cause allergic reactions. So that's the reason, not for any other reason. So you want to avoid that because you know that will cause, well, that quite often causes allergies in patients who already have had very serious allergic reactions. I must say we mostly use Pfizer in our clinic. More recently, we're using AstraZeneca. We've not had any serious problems at all. So you know, both of the vaccines are absolutely safe. If you go to one of the large vaccination centers, chances are that you will have AstraZeneca. If a healthcare professional comes out to give it to you, you almost certainly will be having AstraZeneca. If you're in a care home, you now will almost certainly have AstraZeneca. At the first care home we did, we used Pfizer. Patients were absolutely fine, so were the staff. So really, either of them are fine. We've not had any problems with them at all.
Ladies, our time is up. And because you promised to come next week, we will have to leave it for next week to carry on with these questions. I mean, there are many questions. We haven't even got to anywhere, and yet we've done an hour already. So I don't know. I mean, people want to know the different types. As you said a few of them, but still there are about 6 or 7, I think, out there now. People are interested in the Sputnik. Some people are interested in the Johnson, whatever, you know. So,
can I say,
Dorcas,
I was just going to say, Candy, apart from the two
yeah,
that we're using here in the UK, we haven't got the full information from the MHRA on any of the others. So, you know, it's, you know, as they come up and they become authorized, then the information becomes available to us. So all we hear is what everybody else hears in the news for now. And I'm sure because Ghana are using the Sputnik vaccine as well as AstraZeneca, information will become available, you know, on that one in due course. So it's, you know, we can only really talk about the ones that we have now. We don't know enough about the ones that are coming through. Obviously, once they're authorized, that means that they've been looked at, and you know, the MHRA has agreed that they are safe to use and it's okay to use them. But until that happens, it's hard to comment on them, and that's the one thing that I would say. But back to you, us coming back next week, we were saying that it would be useful to have somebody from Ghana on whichever show we come back to really explain to people what, you know, what the plans are in Ghana, because it is a totally different system. They have different priorities to what we have here in the UK.
Okay,
and
we can do that. My hour is up. This show will come on television. I need to be within the hour. So, people, thank you so much, Dr. Dorcas. Thank you, Sedina. Thank you so much for coming on. There's so many questions. We didn't even ask half. But if we get the chance, we can do it again and talk some more about it. Bye-bye. Be well.
Thank you. And thank you to the listeners too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye then.
You can stay on. Oh, Sedina's gone off already.
She has.